grateful for this time that we have together, and for the Church of the Advocate for welcoming us, and to the organizers for putting together this conference. I am grateful for this opportunity to learn and listen to one another throughout this day. And what is particularly exciting to me is to see how we're creating a space for new possibilities in what is truly a moment of immense social and economic importance. We're upon a real political equinox, not just here in the US, the stronghold of the capitalism and imperialism that are the principal culprits deliberately orchestrating the oppression and strife faced by the world's masses today. So today, can I get captions? That's fine. So today I'm going to be reading some poetry that's coming out of the struggle against the Indian occupation in Kashmir. I thought I would start off just by prefacing and contextualizing, the historical conditions that are basically the political consciousness of these poems. So in 1947, as plans were made for the end of British rule, the British had recommended that princely states in the region accede to either India or Pakistan. Because Jammu and Kashmir shared boundaries with both India and Pakistan, had a majority Muslim population with a sizable Hindu and Buddhist population, this represented a particular challenge. The Indian occupation of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh, which, if you look at a map, that's like the northernmost part of the region claimed by India. So the Indian occupation of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh began at this moment. Upon installing itself in the region, the Indian government promised a plebiscite as a show of democracy, mostly for an international audience, right? But the plebiscite never happened, and the people never really got a chance to express, what they wanted from this moment. So since then, Delhi has repressed, has been notorious for repressing political dissent amongst Kashmiris in general, in an effort to legitimize the Indian occupation there. It has killed movement leaders and has manipulated elections to suit its interests. So one of the reasons it's important, I think, to read some of this very beautiful and powerful poetry that's coming out of this movement against the occupation is that it really punctures, I think, the India shining narrative, the idea that we're often told that the liberal narrative is that India is the world's largest democracy and so on and so forth. But one thing to think about is the ways in which the ruling class there remains immune to the suffering of the Kashmiris. And so today we see the Indian Army as an occupying force in the Kashmir Valley. I wish I had some photographs. This book that I'm reading from, translated by Suvir Kaul, a professor of English, from the original Kashmiri into English, has some very, I think, important photographs that kind of show what it looks like to live in Kashmir today. It's basically a war zone. Srinagar is basically, military occupation, I wish I could show you. So what ends up happening is that throughout the 80s, India sends its military to guard its territorial claims in Kashmir. And, one thing the connection is often made between Kashmir and Palestine. How is it that, when we think of India, it's this, we think of the anti-colonial struggles, the movements that came out of this, and how is it that a people that experience colonialism can do this, just, in their backyard, so to speak. So, and the connection then to Palestine and Israel is how is it that, Israelis can reproduce the same kind of violence that they, possibly experienced in, concentration camps and so on overseas. In the occupation of Palestine. So that's something to think about. And also we've been talking a lot about Pan-Africa and Pan-Asia in the Free School, and when I think of the situation in Kashmir, the claims that are being made to it and the suffering of the people, I find that turning to Du Bois and Pan-African and Pan-Asian solidarity is promising and crucial to think through some of these questions. So I'm going to jump into the poems. I had some more to say, but I don't want to take up too much time. So the poems I will read today speak to the history of this struggle. I've always been fascinated by the ways in which poems register their historical conditions, their conditions of production, the political consciousness of the poem, as I mentioned earlier. And as I said, the book that I'm reading from is called Of Gardens and Graveyards, and it's a collection of essays and poems in translation by Kashmiri poets by Suvir Kaul, and the poems themselves are prefaced with some essays, so if you ever want to check out the book, it's going to be available soon. Okay, so the first poem I'm going to be reading is called Betab, which means restless. And I chose this poem because it basically meditates on the loss that a lot of the displaced Kashmiris feel, and I was thinking about the question of gentrification in North Philadelphia and the ways in which these displacements, right, are connected, because this is, of course, the brutal system of capitalism and imperialism that facilitate and nurture the conditions that lead to the people's oppression in both these contexts. So, Bridge Nath is the name of the poet, and the poem is Betab, and it's a ghazal, which is a special form of poetry. I wish I could tell you more. I'm not too certain, but it is a specific form, and I want to draw attention to that. Okay. Will not the flower bloom in the garden as in the past? Does the bulbul perch on the windowsill to sing as in the past? Have our village gardens been turned into market gardens yet? Does no one ask for a basket full of greens as in the past? Do the village children still gather at the milkman's store? Do they still invent nicknames, Sparrowhawk, as in the past? Does anyone come asking neighbors for gurus? Does anyone bring the cow a dole, as in the past? Does daughter-in-law still bring birth gifts from her mother's house? Does the carpenter craft anywhere a cradle, as in the past? Is grain still dried on plain straw mats? Is the mortar and pestle found anywhere, as in the past? Our mud walls fell the same way, even today. Do children eat mulberry in hiding, as in the past? Does anyone sing and dance on Bayat's banks on Eid? Does anyone boat down to Tola Mola, as in the past? How much are we going to taunt each other? Do you think we'll never come together, as in the past? Betab says he will return home, and Afaq Aziz sends word that sister picks up a new long gun, as in the past. And the word Betab means restless, by the way, the title of the poem, Restless. The second poem I want to read is called That's When I Threw the Stones. And I came across this poem actually, and I think Suvir, who translated these poems, did too, online, during, a lot of the movements, people turned to social media as a way to connect with each other. So a lot of these poems that were written were actually originally posted online and then, translated into, this is the context in which they were translated. So I came across this poem a year ago online, and it was such a powerful poem. And when Ferguson was happening, I immediately connected some of the experiences that the poet was detailing with some of the experiences of people in Ferguson. And the poem is by Arshad Mushtaq, and it's called "That's When I Threw Stones." And we've been talking a lot about Fanon and his essay on violence at the Free School, and when is it that people just have had enough? And I think this poem gets to the heart of that. When they tied barbed wire to my love, that's when I threw stones. When they shattered my dream, that's when I threw stones. When they fired at a suckling baby, my blood rose to a boil. When they stuffed in a grave a hennaed groom, that's when I threw stones. When they torched a poor widow's home saying, "Jai Hind," each time they honored oppression, that's when I threw stones. When they left Lal Ded naked on the banks of the Rumbiar, when they killed Yusuf before Zuni's eyes, that's when I threw stones. When in darkness into the Vayat, they threw a brother of 7 sisters, when into death's sleep they lulled Akanundan, that's when I threw stones. Thank you.
I want to just share a few words and then share a poem. First, let me just say how much an honor it is to be here with all of you on this day. To be talking about someone like Fidel at this hour in history is most significant and important, and we cannot overstate that. The spirit of the revolution. The artist at its heart is the spirit of the revolution. For it is the artist that holds the hopes of the people, speaks them back to the people. And what else is the first hope of any people but freedom? The artist's fundamental role is to remind the people of our beauty in the face of the ugliness that surrounds us. And it is from that beauty our brilliance bursts forth like the night, like the light of a new day. It is the artist that challenges us at the core of ourself, reminds us of our ideals of love, of unity, justice and peace, and the will for peace. It is the artist that has the capacity to breathe new life into a people beaten down as we are. So yes, at this time, it is clear that we need the artist more than ever. As the empire is prepared to strike back, it is the artist that calls us to our fight back. Of all the revolutions, arguably, it is the Cuban Revolution under our beloved brother and comrade Fidel Castro that the lesson of solidarity is best learned. For it is and has been the Cuban people who gave well beyond their supposedly meager but yet still mighty resources to further a collective struggle for liberation worldwide. Let us remember that as we struggle today to combine our understanding and our will to be free from the forces of imperialism, capitalism, and all institutions of national oppression and ethnic intimidation. It is the artist that best captures the courageous and the dynamic that lies within the everyday people and the undying spirit that is ours. Indeed, it is the artist that reminds us that we all are revolutionaries. When asked to share some poetry, and I saw on the agenda that most of the poets are sharing poetry of revolutionaries, those that came before us and led the path. Of course, I had to read something by Baraka, those that know that. And so I think this poem best captures Baraka's intent with respect to the role of art and revolution. For those that don't know, it was a fateful experience, one could argue, that Baraka had in 1961 when he had the opportunity to replace Langston Hughes on a tour to Cuba with a committee that was there to respect and appreciate the revolution that was undergoing. It was a life-changing experience for Baraka, and certainly a life-changing experience for all of us who admire and respect and follow in that path. Between infrared and ultraviolet, we are the inside of reality, what move it and turn it up, around and on and on. We are the where you been and the there you go. We ain't perfect, ain't even rich, We ain't that believable sometimes. What we want, what we say, all the upside, inside. By George, they went off like that stuff. We are the silent and the loud. The quiet blue in the sky of morning, the murmuring redness makes when the sun books to light up the rest of the family. We are old as anything, but never stay anywhere too long. We invented whatever you can say, except we don't want to take credit for the bad shit, but we invented that too. My man over there invented God on a humble under a tree, and Jimmy dropped the load on his head. He said God and got over for dough. My wife invented bread from flowers. I said it was a good idea, then went off trying to bite a tree. I climbed up a tree second. She was first. I invented quizzical expressions and long silences. I thought up music the way the sky wanted to get in our business all the time. We are everywhere you've been, and where you going, we let you know to go there. Your boy in the corner sleep invented the devil, and got behind his, and that got his behind whipped by his own theory, then tried to lock up what it brought. He invented jails too and was the first one in one. That dude over there crying invented the church. Now he trying to explain what he meant. We are the fall as it lets you dig it. The spring as you walk through it smiling. We are rain, light and heavy, and fine when it simmers under our food. I thought of speech when my toe got broke trying to eat a flower. The sky I used to call sister all and thought Shango was doing it to her. I got here second. My wife was first. I wanted to keep on hunting on the ground till the bite marks made me look like one of them ugly cats who want to sink their teeth into your next ears. We were where when anybody thought to think up being there. We was invented to be humans and thought we had cop. We was communists covered with our natural binds. We let it go for groceries and had to cut out when the grocer got ugly. We was big fish and could sing then. We was wailing in the water and dug light was in our waves. We explained tides and kept records when bird was jet black and crisscrossed overhead chasing the sun. We figured out what the soul was watching him. I could sing when fingers come out. We lived everywhere there is and know everything but what we need to know next. We the only people never been nowhere that don't exist. We dream in the billions. Your boy, the dog with the hat on, invented money. That's why he got a gun. You say somebody want to waste it. We are the shadows that haunt what shouldn't stay around. We are the whispers of the future's wings, the engines of the spirit, the breath of the earth, the dirt, the lips of the water, the beating of the day, night. I come here second. Where was I before? Before is not anybody you know. I used to play the drums when they growed up in my hands. I sat in a tree and thought up numbers. I was a revolutionary from way back. Asked that cat with my bad talk in his ear and new foot up his ass. I confess evil was an experiment. Don't hold it against me. I knew it was risky and told your boy Yaku. He dug it later and started a singing group. We were so out, we went away and came back to go again and made a circle to have something to say. Eating was the way we walked. I was never alone. I came here second. My wife was first. We know what need to be and keep talking about it. We as singers and drummers, horn players and poets and painters and sculptors and dancers and actors, workers and runners. My man over there thought up flying, but then had to come back when he went to where he started. We was planets and stars. We was notes and rests. We walked before the clouds asked us to. We was hungry before we knew about food. We is revolutionary day into night, into stars, into somewhere. Look up, we coming again. We is you too. We is to you. We is coming, going, coming and going, loving and digging, laughing and copping, listening and singing, dancing in time, and we is space and time as a picture card of everything. We is revolutionaries. The world is not what it will be. We is what will make it that, and then we is the never of the yes, the tiny of the grand, the hotness of the couth, the seeing, the believing, the practice of the theory, the history of the future, the loss of the found. We are what you need and what you get if you stay around. We are what we was when you are where you're going, and we still getting down. We was perfect and rejected it for travel. We is with you. We is you. We is us and you. We is you and you is everything. All of us is one family, one thing, one mother and father are over all, everywhere, one never saw. We is the revolutionaries. We is the earth turning. We is the stars coming. We is the hot rising, the cold descending. We is, we is, we is. We.